Discipline is not a gift. It is not a personality trait. It is a forged weapon, beaten into shape through daily resistance. Most people do not lack potential. They lack the fire to stay on, the path when the desire fades. The Stoics knew this. They did not wait for motivation. They did not romanticize ease. They embraced hardship as a crucible through which they could shape themselves into something unshakable. What separates those who thrive from those who crumble is not brilliance. It is the ability to say no to the weaker self. The self that wants to sleep in, to quit early, to indulge the excuse. That voice lives in every person. Discipline is not the absence of that voice. It is the forceful choice to act against it. To be stoic is to declare war on passivity. It is to wake each morning and remind yourself no one is coming to rescue you. No one will hold you accountable but you. Your future depends not on chance but on choice. The Stoic doesn't simply hope for strength, they train it. They rehearse discomfort. They make friends with boredom. They anchor their days in habit so that when storms come, they remain unmoved. This video is a call back to that kind of living. Not flashy, not easy, but real, raw, relentless. The kind of life that demands something of you and gives everything in return. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Begin where you don't want to. The hardest part is the beginning. Not because the task is impossible, but because inertia has a powerful grip. It anchors you in comfort, in delay, in self-doubt. It whispers that tomorrow will be better, that the perfect moment is just around the corner. But the Stoic does not wait for perfect conditions to act. They do not look for signs or omens. They do not consult the winds of emotion. They move, they begin. Even if that beginning feels wrong or clumsy or painful, especially then. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you all rise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." He did not say to wait until you feel ready. He spoke of duty. The morning is not for luxury. It is for action. It is for showing up. And the discipline begins right there in the cold air, in the aching limbs, in the fog of resistance that only burns off through movement, waking when you don't want to, working when no one is watching, writing when the words don't flow, training when the body resists, reflecting when the mind wants to escape. These are not just tasks, they are tests. They are sacred proving grounds where the Stoic defines their commitment. The resistance you feel is not an obstacle. It is the gatekeeper, and by walking through it, you step into mastery. The Stoic enters these moments with the understanding that avoidance only deepens weakness. They recognize that the longer one delays the hard thing, the more terrifying it becomes. The longer one evades the trial, the more distorted it appears. Every time you evade difficulty, you teach your mind that discomfort is dangerous, when in reality, discomfort is the forge of transformation. It is the place where your illusions melt and your clarity sharpens. The disciplined individual knows discomfort is not the enemy. It is the doorway. It is not something to survive, but something to walk into with intention. That the cost of hesitation is not just time, but identity. With every moment you hesitate, you risk becoming someone who chooses avoidance. A delay is not a pause in your journey. It's a crack in your foundation, an invitation for decay. You give up your voice when you choose silence where resolve is needed. By doing what you least want to do, you sharpen your will against resistance. You train your soul to move with certainty even in uncertainty. You build your backbone. You develop an internal compass that is not shaken by convenience or fear. You train yourself to stand where others would sit, to act when others freeze, to endure where others fold. You remind yourself that you are not here to be entertained. You are here to become principled, to become enduring, to become dangerous to the excuses that once ran your life. To begin where you don't want to is to draw a line in the sand. It is to step forward when everything inside screams to turn back. It is to confront the raw truth of your reluctance and answer it with motion. To say, I will not be ruled by preference. I will not live on the terms of my comfort. It is a form of spiritual rebellion, a declaration of inner authority, a refusal to be seduced by ease. It is the moment you tell yourself, the world may be chaotic, but I will not be. I will not mirror its unpredictability. I will be a fixed point in a spinning world. While others are ruled by the noise outside, you decide to live by what is firm inside. That is not just discipline, it is liberation. The liberation from reaction, from indulgence, from surrender. You do not need a grand gesture. You do not need inspiration. You need courage in the small moment. The first action may be small, a breath, a step, a single push. But it contains the whole principle. You move not because you feel like it, but because it is right. Because hesitation corrodes identity. Because delay is self-betrayal. Because every moment of inaction trains you to give your power away. And every time you begin where you don't want to, you build a life not based on ease, but on purpose. Not built on feeling, but founded on character. And that foundation becomes your fortress. That is how strength is formed. Not in the moment of glory, but in the moment of refusal. Not when it is easy, but when it is essential. Not when the world is cheering, but when you are utterly alone and you act anyway. Chapter 2. The enemy is always inside. Discipline is not a battle against the world. It is a battle within. It is not waged against external noise, but against the internal whispers of comfort, laziness, and compromise. The temptations outside only work if they align with weakness inside. They only win when the gates are left unguarded from within. That is why the Stoics' primary war is fought in silence, in solitude, in the deep recesses of the self. That is where the Stoic goes first, inward. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself," and mastery does not come from a single act. It comes from consistent, unwavering command over thought, impulse, and emotion. The real enemy is not the temptation, but the self that wavers before it. The self that whispers just this once. The inner voice that justifies quitting. The part of you that negotiates with excuses. The one that wraps surrender in soft language and seductive logic. It doesn't shout, it persuades. This is why the Stoic watches the mind like a guard at the gate. They do not walk through the world blindly. They do not let their thoughts roam untethered. They are not casual with their inner world. They understand that every thought is a seed, and if left unchecked, it can grow into something destructive. Thoughts are observed, traced back to their origin, examined for truth. Desires are not indulged blindly, but interrogated for alignment with their values. Patterns are tracked with precision. What triggers impulsivity? Where procrastination hides, how fear wears different masks. Lies are confronted without mercy. No excuse. No delusion is allowed to hide in the shadows. The internal life becomes a battlefield of self-scrutiny. The Stoic stands in the center of that war, unblinking. Every emotion is interrogated. Where did you come from? What are you trying to protect? Are you rooted in truth or fear? Every excuse is put on trial. It's not enough for a thought to be comforting. It must be just. It must pass the test of reason and virtue. The Stoic learns to distinguish between a passing feeling and a binding principle. They become fluent in their own psychological landscape, familiar with every trap, every false shortcut, every lie that once worked. What once deceived them becomes obvious. What once tempted them becomes harmless. They know the terrain of their weakness and patrol it like sacred ground. When the weaker self speaks, it doesn't matter today. I'll do it tomorrow. I want a break. The Stoic does not argue. They act. They do not negotiate within discipline. They do not indulge in lengthy inner debates. They do not seek compromise with their lower nature. They interrupt the pattern by refusing to give it energy. They strip it of momentum before it becomes habit. They don't rationalize, they realign. They choose action over analysis, truth over comfort. They do not allow a moment of weakness to become a direction of life. For the Stoic, a single concession can become a trend, and a trend can become a lifestyle. Instead, they build momentum through clarity. They stand inside the storm of their emotions and declare, "This is the path, I walk it regardless." That is not self-punishment. It is self-respect in action. It is an affirmation that they are ruled by their ideals, not their impulses. It is self-governance. It is the declaration that values, not feelings, determine behavior. That identity, not emotion, shapes each step forward. It is the refusal to betray who they've committed to becoming in daily life. This means setting standards that do not shift with emotion, standards that are lived in silence when no one is watching, standards that are not dictated by trends or the mood of the moment, but anchored in a higher calling. It means constructing a code and living by it without needing to be coaxed, praised, or reminded. Your principles must be so deeply etched into your identity that they remain unchanged even when everything around you tries to pull you in another direction. It means making decisions before the moment of weakness arrives. So when it does, you are already armed with clarity. Your will has been pre-trained to respond with strength. It means doing the work even when the world offers alternatives that glitter but don't last. Even when those around you praise shortcuts and glorify comfort. Even when the crowd celebrates the easy win, the Stoic chooses the hard road, the earned road. Even when others make it look easy to cut corners or indulge distractions, the disciplined one sees the hidden cost. Integrity lost, potential withered. You do not envy the shortcut. They envy your consistency. For your actions stack quietly like bricks, building something no external force can give or take. When your mind says later, the Stoic code says now. When the path narrows, when the day darkens, when fatigue pulls at your limbs and doubt whispers seduction, the Stoic stands rooted because the path was chosen long ago and temporary emotion does not unmake eternal commitments. Commitment is not measured by how you feel, but by what you do despite how you feel. It means refusing to be manipulated by your moods to act from vision, not volatility. Moods are weather. Vision is landscape. One shifts, the other stays. It means moving forward even when your motivation dies. even when the weather turns, even when no reward seems visible. The Stoic does not depend on outcome to justify effort. Effort itself is the justification. It means becoming a consistent force in an inconsistent world. A person whose word means something, even if only to themselves. Someone who remains tethered to principle when convenience claws at their attention. Someone who does not abandon the path when it no longer feels glamorous. It means showing up for yourself when no one else would notice if you didn't. It means walking into silence with your head held high, knowing you have shown up where it mattered most, within. Because you know that every quiet decision builds the structure of your soul. Each repetition lays another stone. Each refusal to quit becomes the pillar of a character no adversity can shake. That refusal is strength. That refusal is freedom. It is the Stoic's defiance in the face of internal chaos. It is what makes the Stoic untouchable by circumstance and unbreakable by pressure. It is the stillness of the one who walks through storms and does not flinch. Not because they are immune to fear, but because they are loyal to courage. It is the quiet rebellion that builds empires within. Not by conquering others, but by conquering the self, by refusing to be enslaved to weakness or hijacked by emotion. It is how the Stoic reclaims authorship of their life, word by word, deed by deed, habit by habit, by choosing order over impulse, responsibility over ease, and principle over pleasure. It is the formation of a mind that cannot be bribed by comfort or delayed by fear. A mind that is anchored, tested, and true. A mind that has met pain and remained principled. A mind that is sovereign. And from that mind comes a life disciplined, dignified, and unshakably your own. The kind of life that can't be broken because it has been, built on the refusal to be ruled by anything less than virtue. A life of self-command, a life worthy of its own respect. Chapter 3. Routine is the fortress. A disciplined life is not dramatic. It is structured, predictable, steady. It is not fueled by adrenaline or bursts of inspiration. It is grounded in habit, in foresight, in intention. The Stoic does not seek novelty. They seek stability because they understand that stability is not stagnation. It is the soil in which mastery grows. Routine is not a prison, it is a fortress. A protective structure that shields the mind from chaos and the soul from drifting. Every repeated action becomes a stone in that fortress. Waking early, reflecting daily, exercising the body, reading the masters, writing down thoughts, meditating in stillness, reviewing your principles, simplifying your choices. These are not signs of rigidity. They are signs of devotion. They are signals to the self that your actions are anchored in values. They are daily offerings made to the person you are trying to become. Not for show, not for praise, but because the consistency of these small acts builds the foundation of something unshakable. Each repetition adds weight to your identity, carving your character deeper into your days. These rituals become your anchor. They remind you day after day that you are not subject to chaos. You are the architect of your conduct. What looks simple from the outside is sacred to the Stoic. It is their temple, their workshop, their sanctuary of discipline. Behind each act lies a vow to endure, to improve, to transcend. Seneca reminded us, "Nothing to my way of thinking is better proof of a well-ordered mind than a man's ability to stop just where he is and pass some time in his own company." That peace comes from order. and order comes from discipline, from a consistent life that is not dominated by appetite or agitation. The ability to sit still, to remain undisturbed, to enjoy the quiet that is not a passive state. It is a manifestation of inner symmetry. It is the reward of consistent living, of building an internal life so solid that it no longer requires external noise to feel full. That silence becomes nourishment. That solitude becomes a mirror, not to escape the world, but to remain whole within it. The Stoic doesn't rely on willpower alone. They understand that willpower is limited, fleeting. It can be exhausted, overwhelmed, or overridden. So they reinforce it. They design their days in advance so that each moment flows naturally into the next, not through guesswork, but through intention. They remove friction before it begins. They anticipate weakness and replace it with preparation. They simplify their environment. They eliminate chaos. They reduce the number of decisions. They create spaces where good choices are the easiest choices, where distraction is minimized and meaning is maximized, where action flows not from impulse but from design. They create environments where the right action is the default, not the exception. This is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is engineering discipline into the structure of the day. It is making your values visible, not just in theory, but in time, in space, in routine. If you want to stay disciplined, don't depend on inspiration. Inspiration is a spark, but discipline is the firewood stacked and ready regardless of the mood. Depend on systems, depend on structure, depend on a foundation that holds even when you don't feel like holding yourself. Don't wait for the feeling. Build the framework. Let discipline not be reactive but engineered. Let it be the architecture of your entire day. Don't let the day happen to you. Craft it, command it, map it with intention before it begins so that every action serves the higher aim. Wake at the same time, not when it's convenient, not when it's easy, but when it's right. Let your mornings be your anchor. Work at the same time, not just when you're motivated, but especially when you aren't. Let your labor be the ritual that brings purpose to motion. Reflect at the same time. Make your evenings a sanctuary for awareness. Move your body with purpose, not vanity. Treat physical discipline as a mirror of your mental discipline. Eat with presence, as a Stoic consumes, not for indulgence, but for nourishment. Speak with clarity. Speak as if every word costs a piece of your energy, because it does. Move with intent. Let your footsteps echo your values. Let your life become a rhythm, not a reaction. Let it pulse with consistency, like a heartbeat trained by philosophy. Let it move with measured cadence, as if each moment were deliberate and deserving. Let each habit link to the next, like the steps of a sacred ritual, each one quietly reinforcing the last. Let your day unfold like a symphony of discipline. Early rising as the overture, purposeful action as the body, stillness and reflection as the closing refrain. Let your calendar reflect not just what you do, but who you are becoming. Fill it with actions that remind you of your commitments. Let your decisions echo into your identity again and again until the line between action and essence disappears. Until doing the right thing is no longer a choice. It is your nature. Let your structure speak louder than your feelings. Let it say, "This is who I am. No matter what I feel today, this is my discipline. This is my design. This is my decision repeated into permanence." In that rhythm, you will find power. the kind that outlasts failure, disappointment, and distraction. The kind that does not vanish when your emotions shift or when recognition is absent. In that order you will find peace, the kind that makes your solitude strong and your silence meaningful. The kind that builds a quiet confidence, not fragile, but forged. In that peace, you will discover a depth of strength that no chaos can reach, a sanctuary inside yourself, a place no fear can shake and no failure can enter. When the world storms outside your door, when demands knock, when temptations shout, when weakness rises, your structure remains. It does not flinch, it does not waver, it does not bend, it does not ask for permission. It stands with silent authority. It stands with unshakable resolve, not as a cage, but as a citadel of the self you've chosen to become. A self built in layers, a self earned through repetition, a self protected not by walls but by wisdom. A self that cannot be shaken because it was designed not just to survive the storm, but to remain unchanged by it. And not unchanged because it is rigid, but because it is rooted. Rooted in purpose, rooted in clarity, rooted in the daily practice of becoming who you were always meant to be. Chapter 4. The Stoic chooses voluntary hardship. Comfort is a slow death. The Stoic knows this not just intellectually, but through personal confrontation with it. That is why they willingly step into discomfort, not to prove a point, not to perform, but to stay ready, to stay honest, to stay sharp. They understand that ease dulls the edge of the will, that comfort can make you complacent, that familiarity can lull you into forgetting what you're capable of. Musonius Rufus taught, "If you desire to be good, begin by believing that you are wicked." It sounds harsh, but it is a reminder to remain vigilant, to not trust in ease, to distrust the voice that says, "You have earned the right to relax." For that voice, if left unchecked, will rob you of your strength. It will convince you that rest is always deserved, that effort is negotiable, theirs, that hard things are optional. The Stoic does not fall for it. They know that to be strong tomorrow, they must train today. Voluntary hardship can take many forms. Cold showers, fasting, silence, exercise, push-ups, sit-ups, long walks, in solitude, turning down luxuries, doing what is uncomfortable, inconvenient, or unrecognized, speaking when you're afraid, remaining silent when you're angry, choosing responsibility when you feel overwhelmed. These are not aesthetic punishments. They are training. They are reminders that the body serves the mind, and the mind must be tempered like steel. They sharpen your attention. They wake you from the stupor of ease. They condition your nervous system to remain composed under pressure. They fortify your tolerance to discomfort and inoculate you against the panic of change. They teach you that you can do without, that you can endure, that you can resist, that you can act without applause, suffer without complaint, and rise without needing to be rescued. And in that resistance, you remember your strength. They build resilience not just in body, but in identity. You are telling yourself, "I am not here for comfort. I am here for growth. I am here to be shaped, not softened." You are proving to yourself over and over again that you are not dependent on pleasure, that your peace is not fragile, that your discipline does not evaporate with fatigue, that you are more than your impulses, that your character runs deeper than momentary craving, that your strength is not performative, it is foundational. You are showing yourself that clarity is preserved in chaos, that purpose can burn bright even in exhaustion, that you can walk through the fire without losing your center, that you can stand in the heat of discomfort and remember who you are, that your identity is not written in comfort but revealed in crisis, that when you choose hardship on your own terms, life's involuntary trials feel less like threats and more like familiar territory. They become repetitions in the same strength you've already rehearsed. Pain becomes a conversation you've had before. Discomfort becomes a friend you've invited in. Challenge becomes a landscape you've already studied and mapped. Each moment of voluntary struggle becomes a rehearsal for involuntary adversity. You don't fear the unknown, you've trained for it. You don't panic when the ground shakes. You've built your house on stone. The modern world seduces us into softness, into distraction, into dopamine loops, into digital sedation, into constant entertainment and passive consumption. It offers comfort at the cost of character, convenience at the expense of will, gratification without grounding. It teaches you to chase relief instead of resolution. It tempts you to numb instead of grow, but the Stoic refuses. They see the trap in luxury, the erosion of edge, the corrosion of grit. They recognize that comfort without purpose is a cage with silk walls. That pleasure, when uncontrolled, is not a gift. It is a leash. They understand that what weakens you often feels good at first, and what strengthens you rarely does. They look discomfort in the eye and say, "You will not break me, you will make me." They invite hardship, not because they enjoy pain, but because they know who they become by enduring it. That choice becomes a source of power no one can take away because it is not situational. It is self-created, and self-created strength is the most durable kind. It is not dependent on ideal conditions. It is not reactive to public praise. It grows precisely because the conditions are hard. It thrives in the friction. It refines itself in resistance. It molds courage where there was once avoidance. That is why the Stoic walks toward the discomfort others avoid, because in doing so, they walk into the strength others never meet. They do not emerge empty. They emerge forged, not just tougher, but truer, not just harder, but wiser, more aligned, more grounded, and more alive. Because in walking through what is difficult, they have walked deeper into who they are meant to be. Chapter 5. Do the work without applause. There is no final reward for being disciplined, no parade, no applause. No standing ovation waits for you in the quiet hours where true progress is made. The Stoic does not act for praise. They act because the action is just, because it aligns with their principles, because doing the right thing is its own reward. The disciplined life is not a performance. It is a private pact with one's better self. Don't hanker after what you don't have. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Instead, fix your attentions on the finest and best that you have, and imagine how much you would long for these if they weren't in your possession." Discipline is one of those things, a quiet, powerful possession, one that is rarely seen, but always felt. It's the hidden current beneath your character, pulling you forward when others drift. It is not glamour, it is not comfort. It is the architecture of inner order. You rise early and no one thanks you. You train daily and no one notices. You hold to your standard when no one else is watching. You show up, you grind, you improve silently without recognition, without praise. You keep promises to yourself without ever announcing them. You push forward not for reward, but because the work itself is your responsibility. That is the true test. Can you live well when no one is clapping? Can you remain loyal to the path when the path gives you nothing in return but more walking? Can you commit to your values in a world that offers more approval for abandoning them than for keeping them? That's where discipline is born. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not in victory, but in obscurity. Not in applause, but in resolve. The Stoic doesn't perform. They live by principle. They do not count likes, awards, or acknowledgement. They do not modify their behavior for recognition. Their compass is internal. Their rewards are internal. Peace, integrity, self-respect. These things do not trend. They do not shout, but they anchor a life. They do not wither in solitude. They do not fade when overlooked. They carry you when the mood fails. They remind you that what is right is rarely what is easy, and what is real is rarely what is loud. Those are not loud things, but they are lasting things because they are earned, not given, because they are internal victories, unchallenged by public opinion and untarnished by the passage of time. In your daily life, stop looking for validation. Stop waiting for someone to notice. Stop shaping your actions around whether or not they will be seen. Begin shaping them around whether they are right. Let your work be the validation. Let your perseverance speak louder than any praise. Let your consistency be your strength, a signal to yourself that you're serious, that you've chosen a higher standard. Let your process be the pride. Let the doing itself be the reward. Let your quiet resolve be your identity, the part of you that shows up even when no one else does. You are not here to be admired. You are here to be aligned. Aligned with virtue. Aligned with your highest standard. Aligned with the version of yourself that does not fold when tested. Keep your head down. Do the work. Not because someone is watching, but because it is who you are, because you have made a decision. Let the applause be silence, and let that silence be sacred. Let it be a refuge. Let it be the sound of a mind that has nothing to prove and everything to offer. A mind that is not hungry for attention but fulfilled by action. In that silence, you will find out who you really are. Because it's only when the noise is gone that the truth has space to speak. In the stillness, your intentions are laid bare. And when it does speak, you will hear something stronger than praise. You will hear the voice of the person you chose to become, unbothered, unwavering, and unstoppable. That voice does not seek approval. It seeks alignment. It doesn't need a stage because it has integrity. It is not desperate to be seen. It is satisfied with being real, with being grounded, with being whole. And once you have that, you will realize you never needed applause. You only needed to know you did not fold. You only needed to know that in the quiet moments, in the unseen hours, in the most invisible sacrifices, you stayed true. You held your line. You honored your principles. That is the kind of discipline no spotlight can create and no spotlight can take away. It is the kind of discipline that lives long after the noise fades. And it is in that silence, not in the noise, that the Stoic finds their power. Chapter 6. Pain is a signal, not a stop sign. Pain is not the enemy, it is a messenger. It speaks a language most people refuse to learn. The Stoic, however, listens because pain has something to teach, something to reveal. It is not there to torment, but to inform. It is not always a punishment. Sometimes it is a product, a push, a compass, a mirror reflecting where you are weak and what you avoid. Pain is honest when the world is deceptive. It strips away illusion and reveals what you still need to face. To the undisciplined, pain is the end, the reason to stop, the justification to turn back. They see it as a malfunction in the system, not a message from it. But to the Stoic, pain is a signal. It says, pay attention, adjust, grow. This is where you learn. It is not an invitation to retreat. It is a demand to rise. Pain is the exam life gives you after you've claimed you are serious. It asks, were you only committed when it was easy, or are you here to stay? Marcus Aurelius wrote, if it's endurable, then endure it. If not, then stop complaining. The Stoic separates pain from panic, discomfort from distress, challenge from chaos. They do not allow sensation to dictate direction. They examine it, study it, use it. They ask, what is this showing? Me. They look past the surface reaction and into the message. They use the energy of the pain not to retreat, but to reinforce resolve. Pain in the body means adapt, train smarter, strengthen the weak points. Pain in the mind means reflect. What thought is causing suffering? What truth are you resisting? Pain in the heart means clarify. What is the source of this ache? Is it expectation, loss, ego? The disciplined individual reads pain like a letter addressed to their character. They don't ignore it. They don't dramatize it. They decode it. They use it as feedback, not as fate. You cannot become what you are capable of being if you flinch at every ache. Growth is not polite. It demands discomfort. It does not ask for permission. It interrupts. It presses. It confronts. Pain is the threshold beyond which you meet strength. Not strength of muscle, but of character. It humbles the ego. It removes the illusion that you are invincible or entitled to ease. It focuses the attention. It pulls your awareness into the present moment. It burns away what is superficial. False goals, flimsy identities, fragile habits. It reveals what is essential, what you truly believe, what you are willing to fight for. The strongest people you know didn't avoid pain. They walked through it and came out more precise, more resolved, more awake, not in spite of the pain, but because of it. And when it passes, as it always does, it leaves something behind. Resilience, proof, evidence that you kept going when it would have been easier not to. That you didn't run, you didn't fold, you endured, you adjusted, you showed up when it hurt, when it felt pointless, when the reward was unclear. And that is where identity is forged. Not in the moments of ease, but in the trials that revealed your capacity to transcend, to outlast fear, to hold to your values, to keep faith with your higher self. Pain reveals your edge, then dares you to step past it. It asks, who are you? When it gets hard and your answer isn't spoken, it's lived. Let pain inform your process, not interrupt it. Let it sharpen you, not shake you. Let it be the cost of clarity, not the reason you lose your way. Let it remind you that what is earned is kept. Use it to examine your attachments, your assumptions, your need for ease. Use it to develop a new relationship with difficulty, not as an enemy, but as a mirror. Let it refine your understanding of strength, not as the absence of struggle, but as the mastery of it, not as the denial of hardship, but as composure within it. The Stoic greets pain not with fear, but with interest, with attention, with gratitude for the opportunity to sharpen the soul. Because pain, like discipline, is a doorway to power, and only those who walk through it fully, intentionally, without flinching, will understand what real power feels like on the other side. It is not loud, it is not easy, but it is yours, and no one, can give it to you. You must go through to get it. Chapter 7. Win the small moments. Discipline is not always about grand gestures. It lives in the small moments, the ones that seem insignificant but accumulate into who you become. The decision to get out of bed when it's easier to snooze, the pause before reacting, the choice to begin even when you're not ready, the decision to keep going when nothing external demands it. These moments don't make headlines, but they make character. They are the bricks that build your identity, placed one after another in silence. The Stoic understands that greatness isn't built in bursts. It's built in layers, quietly, consistently, moment by moment. They know that the day is full of invisible turning points, forks in the road, where one direction builds power and the other erodes it. They train themselves to see these points, to honor them, to act, not because anyone will see it, but because these small decisions echo into who they become tomorrow. The person who ignores the small moments will never survive the big ones. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That's what it feels like sometimes to honor the small disciplines when no one else does. To say no to impulse, to delay gratification, to choose principle over pleasure, to walk away from something that gives you immediate comfort because you know it weakens your long-term strength. The Stoic accepts the awkwardness, the invisibility, the seeming futility, because they know the one who wins the small moments wins the big ones too, because the small moments are practice, and practice shapes permanence. A moment of silence now becomes a reservoir of strength later. The small moment is where the phone is put down so the book can be picked up, where the weight is declined and the standard upheld, where the complaint is silenced and gratitude spoken, where distraction is replaced by attention, where excuses are cut off mid-thought and action begins without fanfare. These are not glamorous victories, but they are sacred. They are how you become the type of person who can be trusted by others and by yourself. They are the foundation under every visible accomplishment. No external achievement means anything if your private life is weak, fractured, or reactive. You build the person you want to be in these seemingly mundane choices. In your day, watch for the crossroads. The quick yes that should be a thoughtful no. The mindless scroll that could become mindful study. The delay that could become direction. The shortcut that could become sabotage. Win those and you win everything, because the Stoic knows discipline doesn't just show up. It's summoned, one decision at a time. It's not gifted, it's built. One ordinary action after another. One morning of getting up when it would be easier to stay in bed. One refusal to quit early. One mindful breath instead of a careless outburst. One internal redirection from distraction to purpose. Discipline is the sculpture formed from dozens of unseen decisions. The small moments, when stacked day after day, create internal architecture that cannot be shaken by a single bad day or moment of doubt. Each small moment you master becomes a brick in the fortress of who you are becoming. You don't see the fortress right away, but every time you choose growth over comfort, you're laying stone. One choice to honor your standard when no one is holding you to it is the seed of personal sovereignty. It's when you start to trust yourself, not just when things are simple, but when they are inconvenient, unglamorous, and lonely. When you realize you don't need pressure or punishment to act, you have a code, a compass, a non-negotiable sense of what matters. That's the power of the small moment. It's not small. It's the whole battle in disguise. It is the hidden arena where you train your resilience and verify your alignment. It's the rehearsal for every major choice to come. Because the person who flinches in the small will never hold steady in the storm. And if you win enough of these small moments, your life becomes something not built on impulse or accident, but on purpose, designed from the inside out. That is the path of the Stoic, not dramatic, but deliberate, not impressive, but unshakable, not loud, but lasting. They do not chase applause, they chase integrity. And it is this quiet consistency that builds an extraordinary life. Chapter 8. Say no with conviction. Discipline thrives on boundaries. The ability to say no is not just a refusal. It's a declaration. It is a confirmation of your priorities. A line that protects your energy, your purpose, and your values from being diluted by distractions or misaligned commitments. It is a fence that guards the garden of your effort, so weeds don't overtake your growth. Without boundaries, even the most noble goals are vulnerable to erosion. The Stoic knows that every yes to something weak is a no to something strong. Every time you agree to what does not serve you, you betray what could. Every compromise in the name of comfort creates a fracture in your foundation. They guard their time, not because they are selfish, but because they are stewards of a limited resource. Time spent is life spent. Energy given is attention invested. So they spend wisely. Every moment spent unconsciously is a withdrawal from the future they could have built. Every hour wasted on distraction is an hour stolen from the version of themselves they are trying to become. To the undisciplined, saying yes is easy. It offers immediate acceptance. It provides momentary pleasure. But to the disciplined, every yes is weighed carefully. They know that a single deviation can cascade into disarray. They know that guarding their time means guarding their life. Their calendar is a reflection of their character, their choices, a reflection of their clarity. They see no not as rejection, but as redirection. A way to remain loyal to the mission even when the world demands deviation. Saying no requires courage, especially when others expect a yes. When culture rewards overextension. When your ego craves approval. When the path of least resistance is paved with applause. When every invitation feels like an obligation and every interruption disguises itself as opportunity, but the disciplined life is not lived for approval. It is lived for alignment, and alignment requires sacrifice. It demands the rejection of things that seem good for the sake of things that are great. It means risking misunderstanding for the sake of self-respect. It means not chasing popularity, but choosing purpose, even when the cost is loneliness. Practice saying no, not just to others, but to yourself, to impulses, to shortcuts, to anything that pulls you away from your path. Say no without guilt. Say it clearly. Say it with conviction. Say it not from a place of fear, but from a place of fierce loyalty to your higher vision. Say it like you mean it, because your future depends on it. Because the yes you say to discipline must echo louder than every distraction. Every no strengthens your yes. Every no reinforces your direction. Every no is a gate you close to protect the temple you are building within. Each no you offer, the world is a yes to the life you are carving out with your bare hands. Your discipline is only as strong as your ability to protect it. Say no to preserve your standard. Say no to protect your peace. Say no to defend your future. Say no to the ease that erodes your edge. Say no because your higher self depends on it. And when you do, you will find something remarkable. What once felt like a loss now feels like liberation. What once felt like denial now feels like devotion. The noise fades, and what remains is sacred clarity. That is the clarity born from saying no with conviction. And once you learn that kind of power, you stop fearing what you give up and start honoring what you gain. Chapter 9. Lead yourself first. You cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself. You cannot expect loyalty from others if you abandon your own commitments. Discipline begins in the mirror. It is personal before it is public. No title or position can replace the quiet integrity of someone who holds themselves accountable when no one is watching. The mirror doesn't lie. It reflects the discipline or the neglect, the honesty or the compromise. The Stoic leads themselves first. They hold themselves to the standard before expecting it from anyone else. They don't wait for orders. They initiate. They don't require surveillance. They self-correct. They create momentum where others hesitate. Their authority comes not from control, but from example. Not from domination, but from alignment with principle. They know that true leadership flows from within. Self-leadership means showing up without being told, doing what is hard without being pushed, being honest without being praised, being consistent even when it's inconvenient. It means saying no to what is easy so you can say yes to what is worthy. The Stoic understands that discipline is not about force, it's about ownership. It is the ability to recognize that your life is yours to govern, that your influence begins with your example, that your words carry weight only when your actions echo them, about living in such a way that their actions speak louder than any instruction they could ever give. When you lead yourself, you become trustworthy. You become someone others can rely on, not because you demand it, but because you demonstrate it. You become a lighthouse, not by shouting, but by shining. Your life becomes a compass, a living philosophy. You don't just know the way, you become the way. And when others are lost in uncertainty or noise, they will follow not your advice, but your example. Because you've proven that the hardest person to lead, you has already been mastered. Chapter 10. Discipline is love in action. At its core, discipline is not punishment, it is love. Love expressed as structure, as protection, as preparation for who you are becoming. It is the quiet care you show to your future self. It is the scaffolding you build so your potential does not collapse under the weight of distraction. It is not cruel, but compassionate. It says, you are worth the effort. The Stoic does not force discipline from hatred of self, but from honor of potential. They are not driven by shame, but by vision. They are not trying to earn worth. They are protecting it. Discipline is the act of saying, I believe in something greater, greater than impulse, greater than comfort, greater than the easy way. Is a declaration of commitment to something higher, deeper, and more enduring than emotion or environment. It is a love letter written not in words, but in choices. To rise early, to train, to resist, to reflect, to act deliberately. These are not just habits, they are affirmations, they are quiet proclamations to the self, proof of devotion to a higher aim. Each time you act with discipline, you are saying without words, I matter, my growth matters, my future matters. Each repeated action becomes a vote for the person they are becoming. Each moment of resistance is an offering to the self they believe they can be. These are not hollow routines, they are sacred repetitions. They are how the Stoic carves order from chaos, how they tether themselves to meaning in a world that pulls them in 100 directions. These small choices compound like interest, not just building skill, but character. Waking early trains more than your body. It trains your will. Choosing water over wine, effort over ease, reflection over reactivity. These shape who you are long after the act is over. The Stoic knows these are rituals, not chores. These are not burdens. They are blessings in disguise. They ground the Stoic in a life that is not reactive, but responsive. Not dictated by impulse, but guided by intention. True love is not permissive. It is principled. It does not enable weakness. It cultivates strength. It does not flatter. It fortifies. It does not soften you with indulgence, but strengthens you through restraint. The Stoic disciplines themselves because they refuse to let their future self inherit the cost of their present laziness, because they understand that today's comfort is tomorrow's regret. They choose the harder right over the easier wrong again and again, not because it's glamorous, but because it's necessary, because that is love in action, and love in action always requires effort. True love is protective. It stands guard at the gate of what matters most, refusing to let momentary desire undo lasting progress. Discipline is how you keep your promises to yourself. It is how you live in integrity. It is how you earn your own respect. It is how you teach yourself that your words matter, that your goals are sacred, and that your life deserves effort. It is a testament to your values made visible through consistent action. It is the armor you forge through repetition. The path you walk not because it's easy, but because it's aligned with who you are meant to be. And in the end, that is the reward. To live a life you admire. To walk through your days and know you did not fold, you did not drift, you did not betray your highest self. You did not confuse ease with fulfillment. You rose to meet the day, not retreat from it. You stood firm. You stayed ready. You endured when it would have been easier to quit. You loved deeply through discipline, through effort, through the quiet daily decision to be your fullest self, whether anyone notices or not. And that is the final act of power. Not what others see, but what you prove to yourself. That is the lasting gift of discipline. Not applause, but alignment. Not noise, but purpose. Not perfection, but perseverance.